You are tuning in to the Pop Culture Retrospective Podcast.
This show is dedicated to the memory of my big sister Rebecca, a fan of all things pop culture, particularly of the people, places, and things that defined the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Welcome aboard this pop culture time machine. I'm Amy Lewis. This is episode number 104, 25 questions about 90s television shows with pop culture author Chris Morgan. Chris was on the show just over a year ago, and we had so much fun discussing his book, 99 Episodes That Defined the 90s, Television Milestones from Arsenio to Homer to Yada Yada Yada, that we decided to collaborate once again, aka Collaboration Station, but this time we revisit the TV of yesteryear in a very unique format, never before heard on the podcast. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Pop Culture Retrospective Podcast. Thank you so very much for tuning into the Pop Culture Retrospective Podcast. As always, I am Amy, your captain aboard this pop culture time machine, as I like to say. And today I am rejoined by now returned guest, Mr. Chris Morgan, and in honor of his being located in the Nittany State, if you will, I have my Northern Michigan University hat on.
I thought that was a Northern Michigan. Yeah, I
Yes.
figured, recognize that logo, all
Yep.
the various esoteric schools. Good, I growing up, and still now I'm like a hockey fan. And so like all the various college hockey universities in the States. I was like, I think it's a Northern Michigan University hat. It was familiar.
True. It's proud alumni.
Ah.
Yes. So Chris is rejoining us. If you didn't get a chance to catch his episode, he was on about a year ago, and I was just going through my stats a little bit, and I don't really pay that much attention to the stats. I do this show because I love pop culture and to honor my sister and stuff. But actually, Chris's episode is one of the most downloaded episodes, and kind of not only from last year, but I think just in general too. Which again, I mean, there's a lot of episodes and a lot of data to go through, but clearly people are love what you write about and talk about. So Chris is an author. He has written a book called 99 Episodes That Defined the 90s, Television Milestones from Arsenio to Homer to Yada Yada Yada. He has also written a book about Nickelodeon, which I know many people who listen to the show are fans of. And that book is called The Nickelodeon 90s, Cartoons, Game Shows, and a Whole Bunch of Slime. And you also have a really fun newsletter on Substack. I was taking a look at that the other day. And you also write a lot about sports. Chris, welcome back to the show. Did I miss anything with the little intro there?
No, that's good. Unless people are super local to Detroit and want to go to where I'm hosting trivia. Otherwise, for the general landscape of the world, that, pretty much covers what I do. And it's good to be back and not be in full on like book promotion mode. I mean, there's a little bit of that when you're in this industry. There's always a little bit of promoting the stuff, but just have more of like a, casual conversation about 90s pop culture stuff. I'm looking forward to it.
Definitely. Well, I'm so glad that it worked out to have you back on. And, Chris was supposed to be on about maybe it was like a week or two ago. But of course, we had another snowstorm here in Maine. So with children running around, wanted to make sure I had some time to focus and not get interrupted by two adorable children. So thank you for your flexibility with that.
Oh, it was so good. Yeah, even in Michigan, we had, a bit of that snowstorm, kind of as well. So I wasn't, surprised when it ended up shaking out that way. And, I was also free today. So we were able to reschedule and it's all good.
Okay, awesome. Well, yes, you understand the struggles of the climate. So kind of going to do something a little bit non-traditional with today's show. So I work from home. I'm self-employed. So I often have YouTube kind of playing in the background while I'm doing work. And so one kind of random YouTube show that I've stumbled on is it's a YouTube series that's done by Vogue, which I am not a reader of Vogue. that's so not my forte. But they have this really interesting series where they interview various celebrities in their homes, and it's kind of a one camera, one person, and this gentleman kind of follows a celebrity around their house and asks them some random questions, and it's not just the typical questions that celebrities are asked during all of their kind of interviews. It's just stuff about their life and kind of getting to know them. So sort of inspired by that, I decided to kind of make our own version of that. And so celebrities like Taylor Swift and Adele have been on this show. It's called 73 Questions. And so, for example, Taylor Swift was asked how many guitars does she own, and Adele was asked who are her top 8 friends when she had MySpace, which I thought was a pretty funny question. So I have pre-planned some questions that Chris has not seen that are sort of inspired by his book, which you can see behind me here, with a heavy emphasis on 90s TV shows, with several questions devoted to Muppet Babies, but we'll get to that. Greatest cartoon of all time. So these questions are in no particular order and kind of run the gambit of the diverse array of shows that Chris covered in his fantastic book that I've had the pleasure of reading now multiple times. And it's really just really fun. And I really appreciate your kind of dry sense of humor, like myself. The little little notes it's just a great read.
Thank you.
Yeah. So some of these are open-ended, some are close-ended, some are multiple choice. It's just kind of an informal 25 questions, as I'm calling it, about 90s TV shows with Chris Morgan. Okay.
Cool.
All right. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's take this concept for a test run.
Okay. So we'll see how it goes. All right. First question. Out of the 99 TV shows you covered in your most recent book, which that was a lot of work, which do you think had the best theme song, and which do you think had the worst?
Oh, interesting, because when I think TV theme songs in my favorite, what I often think of is Hey Sandy from The Adventures of Pete and Pete, but I didn't include that in this book because I wrote about it so much in my Nickelodeon book. As much as I really enjoyed that show, I don't think I could necessarily have been like defining the 90s, like if I could only pick 99 episodes, that would have been maybe a little too for myself. And I already had my Nickelodeon book for that.
Sure.
Best versus worst. Let's see. Futurama's theme song's kind of a banger for sure. That comes to the top of my head. The Friends theme song is, I'm not the biggest Friends fan, but that theme song is, a good sort of like catchy pop song. The thing is, when you write a book about 99 shows, you start having to be like, okay, what are the shows? Of course, Clarissa Explains It All, classic theme song, but
yes, simple.
Yeah. To the point for sure. Those are definitely, but if I, have to pick one off the top of my head, that Futurama theme song is a good like banger to get you going, instrumental, clear, what's going on with that show when it, hits. In terms of like worst, I always found Roseanne's to be kind of like generic. I'm trying to remember I didn't do Dawson's Creek. I did Felicity. Never mind. Let's see. But yeah, certainly the Roseanne one doesn't, strike me as being super engaging off the top of my head. Just think of some of the shows. Law and Order, that's an effective one, in the same way as the Futurama one. Roseanne did pop to me as just being like never like the most interesting theme song, kind of in the way where like people will talk about growing up on like MASH reruns and that MASH theme song kind of being like a bummer and being like I feel like Roseanne is a similar vibe of it's just like there's a bummeriness kind of to that theme song for me. It's not, it doesn't energize. It's like, and it's also, yeah, it's like the polar opposite of the Futurama. It's like Futurama, it's like, bam, let's get going, energy. The Roseanne one just like kind of saps the energy as you're going into the sitcom. That's what I'll say. And I should probably take less time answering these questions.
No, it's okay. I like the discussion part because, again, I think if anybody who's tuning into the show and yourself and myself, you know, like this is a subject that we're just very like passionate about and that we remember distinctly. So I think it, you know, deserves some time to really think it through. But I didn't even think about that with Roseanne. I mean, it's certainly heavy on the sax. You know, so yeah, I could see that being a little bit of a downer for sure. You know, and just kind of panning around their you know, not so exciting home. And yeah, that's a very, I like that. That's a good one. All right, let's see. Again, these are just kind of jumping all around. I was like writing stuff down as I was listening, and then I was at a stoplight and I was listening to it, and I was like, oh, I got to write that down. So question number 2, the Wayans family is, of course, very well known for their impressive contributions to both TV and film. And which Wayans sibling of the kind of older generation, the, you know, Keenan Ivory Wayans and his siblings, I know there's like a second generation now, but out of that group that we became familiar with very heavily, especially in the 1990s, who do you think is the funniest? And they don't have to be the most successful one or the most well-known one, but
I think in terms of like, when I was younger, I thought it was Marlon. But like, Marlon's career has gone into a space of like doing like the scary movie type stuff and what have you.
Yeah.
I think it's honestly probably Keenan Ivory Wayans. Like, and you know, specifically because the stuff that he did with like, I believe alongside Robert Townsend and like sort of like their parody stuff, their sort of riffing on blaxploitation sort of things and like, you know, black cinema and black television when it was still, they were kind of early to that. And I find Keenan to be the most creative and interesting of the bunch. I think Damon is the best like performer, but I think the smartest, most interesting, clever of them is Keenan.
You guys are so ludicrous tonight, I'm ecstatic. Oh, what's going on in the news? What does he think he is? A Supreme Court judge? Who's up for the fraternity suit? And the kid looks nothing like him. He's short, ugly, lines in his hair, gold teeth. Hey, who's writing this stuff?
Yeah, I think that's a great assessment for sure. And I think one Wayans that I feel like doesn't get enough credit too is Kim. Kim Wayans. Yeah, she did just another kind of just very charismatic and just very like, you know, it's hard to not want to smile or something if you know, when you see her walk into a scene. But I think you really hit the nail on the head there with Keenan Ivory Wayans. He's pretty talented and pretty incredible, a very incredible family with an incredible story for sure. Yeah. So in the 99 shows book, which we'll of course be referencing a lot, which tacky, as I kind of like to call it, which tacky game show do you think that you would be better at? Supermarket Sweep or Shop Till You Drop?
Oh man, well, so I watch a fair amount of supermarket sweep, just because there's a supermarket sweep channel on, Sling. And so
Oh,
if like
wow.
I'm just flipping channels or whatever, just want to throw something on, I end up throwing that on, but usually mostly just to watch the sweep part. But that is to say, I've seen that sweep a lot of times and I
Mhm.
know the philosophies of it and the logistics of it. And so like I've spent a lot more time internalizing it compared to shop till you drop, but also like there's ways to go about the sweep. One, those questions on that show are super easy, and so like I would just be racking up time left and right to be
Yeah.
hitting that market, and then I know like what to do. Like if there's his when they have like the shopping list, bam, you got to get that shopping list. But you don't go out there running without the cart. It's something people do is like, I want to get the shopping list. I'm not going to use my cart. Bring your cart with you and
Mm,
grab stuff while you're doing it. Get that
right.
shopping list. Always be sure to get a bonus. Uh, you know, absolutely grind coffee
Hmm.
or get the candy. The grinding coffee is probably the better if you have to choose because you can grab some stuff off the shelf while you're doing it. Uh, but that also has a specific amount of time where if you get lucky in the candy, you can be like a couple of things thrown in the bag. And then, yeah, you grab the big money items, you grab
Mm.
those turkeys,
Oh,
cheeses,
yes.
all that sort of stuff. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm like, and I've got the athleticism or whatever that like, bam, 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 I'm grabbing all that stuff, I'm throwing it in there. You get,
Hmm.
some of the baby product sort of stuff, which isn't as heavy, easier to throw in there, but a little more cumbersome. So let's just say, like, I know if I were just to be like, bam, offered somehow through some sort of like, influx, and like if I was like quantum leaping or something, and
Hmm.
then like it's like, oh, I'm about to run the sweep, I would know exactly what I was going to do, and I feel
Yeah.
that I could do a good job with it. So 100% supermarket sweep.
Yeah, I can tell. It almost feels like you need one of their shirts or something. Um,
Uh,
do you find yourself when you're grocery shopping, do you find yourself ever thinking to yourself, I wish that I was on supermarket sweep right now, or I really want to run really fast with this cart, but I'll probably run somebody over. Does that ever cross
I
your mind?
don't know if I've ever like, done that, but I definitely could, next time I'm going grocery shopping, maybe I'll think about if like this grocery shop, if this Kroger was where the supermarket sweep happened,
Hmm.
how would I go about it? Which aisles are what, would I be running through? Now, of course, they don't have the same giant ass hams and what have you. Those are very much like, they're
Yeah,
only in that supermarket because it's all, gimmicked up. Obviously, it's not a real supermarket or what have you. So it
sure.
would be a different thing. But yeah, I definitely, the running around when there's other people just shopping. Because I mean, sometimes they almost run into each other when it's just three of them. So
True.
like, if there's other shoppers going around, definitely would be causing, a couple of accidents and collisions if I was taking a supermarket sweep approach to
Hmm.
just cash shopping.
Yeah. Although I think that, yeah, supermarket sweep approach would be kind of nice because I'm definitely
Mhm.
of the group of people or whatever. It's like I want to go to the grocery store and get what I need to get and leave, and I know where it is. Like, go to the same grocery store every single time. And when people are, in the way and the cart's in the middle of the aisle, it's like step aside. I think there should be like two separate times to go to the grocery store. One for the people who are like efficient and like just want to get in, get out, and
Yeah,
the others that want to just graze and look over everything and, park the cart in an inconvenient location.
yeah,
So yeah, it's that'll be for
yeah.
another episode of the podcast. What I wish would happen
Mhm.
at grocery stores. All right. So I can definitely that I can I'm getting supermarket sweep energy from you. I can tell that you're a fan, and I appreciate that. Um, all right. Let's see. In your latest book, you talked a bit about the death of the modern shopping mall. Can you tell us a bit about the mall or malls that you frequented in your youth, and what was it like? And if you went to the mall on a Saturday, what would you be doing? What stores would you go to? Where would you snack? All that good stuff.
Yeah. So there was a mall that we would go to primarily because it was in the suburb I grew up in. Like a lot of malls is no longer around. It just closed down, I think, last year though, whatever. Yeah, it's called Lakeside Mall. It wasn't by a lake.
It's Easter time at Lakeside, where you'll find Easter bunnies and Easter bonnets, and what may be the world's largest Easter basket. Step into the basket and have an Easter photograph made for that very special person. And step into any of our Lakeside stores for the great selections of quality merchandise. Lakeside is your one-stop shopping center with the best and the most. So come join our Easter celebration at Lakeside, one of the world's great shopping centers.
When I was a kid, I would go there, and there would be like, some areas to like, like there's a little play area in there. It's the kind of mall. There'd be a Santa. I don't know if I ever saw the mall Santa or what have you, and then I would get like a Mrs. Fields cookies or what have you. But
same.
In teenage years, it definitely be a place one would go hang out and mess around. Maybe go to the food court and get whatever like junk Sbarro or Subway. Yeah. Those are the two I remember them having there. There was at one time briefly a movie theater. I believe I saw a Goofy movie there. Ooh, and there was at one time a arcade that I never went into because it's gone by the time I was a teenager.
As a teenager, it Aladdin's Castle?
No, it wasn't branded. Okay. Stores that would be going into. I mean, I had a buddy, my buddy Taju worked at the KB Toys, so sometimes we go in there just to like talk to him if he was working. Otherwise, yeah, dip into Spencer's Gifts because you're like a teenager, and so Spencer's Gifts is worth dipping into. But otherwise, yeah, there's not a lot of like going into stores. It would just be more like you're walking around because it's like a 2-floor mall. It covered a decent amount of space, a lot of area. And yeah, you're just like, hanging out as a teenager and then maybe getting some food and maybe popping to a couple stores. But like, I'm trying to remember what sort of, the like anchor stores, whatever. There was like a Sears and a Lord and Taylor, I think a Hudson's, and those were like, and then, yeah, there's one store I always remember going by. I just remember the only thing I remember being in there was like a piano. I don't know what, and then there was, a couple other like the fancy sort of like stores, a couple bookstores. I don't think we had an Orange Julius. The Mrs. Fields was the one like food spot that was not in like the food court. And yeah, so it was like, Lakeside Mall, fairly sizable, lot of the usual stores, briefly a movie theater. But then an AMC opened up across the street. Maybe that's what happened to it. And then that AMC ended up closing down a while after that. It was also near the Pizza Hut. That was like the old school Pizza Hut, move, sit down, that sort of stuff. Go there for book it. So it's a very 90s area. I mean, I say that, but it's because I'm talking about what it was like in the 90s. But yeah, a lot of 90s touchstones in that general area for sure.
Yeah. I know. I think, and I'm sure this applied to other regions of the country, but I grew up in the Midwest also. And I feel like, I don't know if it was because of the weather or maybe just, there wasn't skiing to be had really where I grew up, or, some exotic thing to do. So a lot of weekends or whatever, hanging out with friends just involved going to the mall. And definitely a good call on Mrs. Fields. Do you have a preferred cookie there, or?
I feel like as a kid, I would just be getting chocolate chip. I'm trying to remember because I had not gone into a mall for years. And then a few years ago, I went to a large mall here in the Detroit area because my girlfriend at the time needed to do like her Christmas shopping. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go hang out or whatever. And I saw they had a Mrs. Fields cookies. I'm like, all right. This is what I'm going to do since, for me having like come along to take along while you did your Christmas shopping, I'm getting myself a Mrs. Fields cookie because that is a mall to me, is a Mrs. Fields cookie. And then I wouldn't have got a chocolatey one. So I probably maybe they had like a macadamia nut or like a peanut one. And I remember it being perfectly fine B- cookie, which is all one really wants from a Mrs. Fields.
It's true. Yes, it's true. You know what to expect, and it's consistent every time. That's a very good point. Yes, we always went to Mrs. Field. Always went there. And and I always wanted one of those cookie cakes that were on display too. But those looked quite tasty. All right. Who do you think was the more annoying neighbor? Kimmy Gibbler from Full House or Urkel from Family Matters?
Did I do that? Did I do that? Did I do that? Did I do that?
Annoying to the Winslow/Tanners or annoying to a viewer?
That's a how about just both? Like who's just
All
like
right.
what kind of get under your skin maybe a little bit more?
I think maybe in both instances, well, definitely as a neighbor, it would be Urkel because I mean, as much as Kimmy Gibbler would be, annoying to the Tanners or what have you, and even sometimes maybe to like a Stephanie, she wasn't destroying their lives in a way that Urkel is often destroying the lives of mostly Carl, because that show really, as it went on, became like, what sort of hell is Urkel going to bring to Carl's life this week? And it
Yes.
might have involved robots or time travel or like, like body swapping, whatever sort of stuff. So like Urkel's damage to the lives of the Winslows, like, is, even if it's like a sitcom, so everything by the end would be sort of like wrapped up. Like Kimmy never really had that kind of impact on the Tanner family. And she at least had one, like her best friend lived there. It was like nobody at the Winslow residence seemed to particularly like Urkel. Whereas, if you're like Danny, you may not, Kimmy being around a lot may be a little obnoxious, but she's, your oldest daughter's best friend. So it's like, you sort of accept it. In terms of like, as a viewer, I feel like Urkel is much more like highs and lows, sort of like his like most entertaining moments way outpace whatever Kimmy was doing, but also
true.
like and the lows, like it would be like leading to like bad storytelling, like bad sitcomery in a way. Like
Yes.
it's, Kimmy was not usually driving things as much, particularly on Full House. Now on Fuller House, Kimmy's evolved a little bit more and what have you. But I actually thought, like, I only ended up watching like maybe a half dozen episodes of Fuller House just because, like, I was like, I get the gist of this. But Kimmy was a more sort of like interesting character, and Andrea Barber actually sort of seemed to remain a solid actor in like adulthood. So there she was driving more of the action in a way I could never really imagine Urkel doing. So I would say, owing to those lows of Urkel's like annoyingness, that like as a character, he's probably the answer for both me as a viewer and certainly for the families within the show.
Yeah, I think it's true. And he definitely got so much screen time, and you did a great job sort of explaining how sort of his presence impacted the show. And I think, certainly that show ran its course, and and Kimmy, I think, didn't have as much contributions to like plot lines and stuff. So I think you're right on Urkel there. That that was basically, the show should have just been called Urkel. Urkel is a pain in the butt. That's what they should have called it. And I think it was really interesting too. And I think people have noted this, that like that sort of pesky neighbor role on TV, the other characters are like so mean to that annoying person. It's like it's all just sort of like accepted that we're all gonna like be really rude. It's like, oh, look who's here, like, way to ruin my morning. It's like, my God, this is like a 15-year-old kid walking in, like, wow. And like everybody's like cool with just being really rude to that pesky neighbor.
Good morning. I'm here for the weekend. Dad, how come everybody's mad tonight? Maybe it's because Kimmy Gibbler's here.
I don't think so. Maybe.
That would have been canceled. That would not happen now, as people would be all up in arms about that, because it's just rude.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Now this one might be hard for you to answer. So hypothetically speaking, if you were to commit, some non-violent crime, of course, and you got a punishment of being forced to stay awake for 24 hours, and during that 24 hours, you have to watch the same TV show, like different episodes, but it has to be one TV show, and you have to pick from these choices. Do you want to watch 24 hours of Barney, Ren and Stimpy, or Beavis and Butthead before all the music was taken out?
Ooh. Well, it wouldn't be Barney, even though the lows of Barney would not be as low, but that the thing about shows for children of that ilk is that they're so repetitive
Yes.
that after 24 hours, it's like even shows, there's like some shows that like, from not my childhood, but like, in more recent years that I've seen some episodes of, and they're like perfectly fine. They're like well-written, kind of like nice shows.
Yeah.
But even those shows which are well crafted for that kind of program are repetitive by nature. And so like Barney, which is not well crafted, would just be so repetitive that it would be like, driving me insane during that process.
Yeah.
So then it's like Ren and Stimpy versus Beavis and Butthead, two shows that, I don't think are, particularly funny or like have like a, deserving of reputations. But if the music's not been taken out of Beavis and Butthead, there at least would be, I feel like, more variety in that. And, it's like at least there'll be like breaks where, like I can watch this music video. I can, see that there's going to be content outside the framework of the show to consume. And also like Beavis and Butthead, while, not a particularly like funny show or a well animated show, it's got some moments of cleverness to it that's largely missing from Ren and Stimpy. And so I think it would not be a pleasant 24 hours. Now, if it's 24 hours of Daria, I could do that for sure.
Yeah.
But, I think it'd have to be Beavis and Butthead because those music video breaks would be really beneficial in this scenario that has been laid out for me here, this hypothetical.
Hypothetical and horrible situation. Yes. And I can't remember if I mentioned this on the last time you were on the show, but I think I really appreciated your observation about Barney and how whenever they talked about occupations, it was always a very like prop heavy occupation.
Yeah.
And I never thought about it like that. And I didn't really watch Barney because I was too old, but my cousins did and stuff. And that's so true. They never talk about like a profession for kids that isn't like a firefighter or a police officer or a chef or some village people-esque profession.
It's this, the sort of like very like easy to explain jobs that have costumes. Basically, it's basically costume jobs. It's like most people are just like wearing like business casual to like work, or like like this is what I wear to work, what I'm wearing right now, because I can work from home or whatever, which is, or what have you. But even like a teacher, you can't really like throw like together a teacher costume, but you can throw together a firefighter costume, a postal worker costume, a nurse costume. So they just gave you the most rudimentary visuals for the idea of what people do for a living, as if though everybody, like every adult walking through life, you can look at them and just know immediately what they're doing for a job, because their job involves a costume and they're wearing it all the time.
Right. Yes. So true. My God, that is such a like brilliant and obscure observation for nerds like myself. Nostalgia nerds just appreciate, because that is like 100% accurate and just brilliant commentary. All right, so let's see. Walk us through a typical sick day for you spent at home in the 90s. What would you be doing and what would you be watching? Do you remember, like, what was your routine when you were homesick from school?
Yeah, sick days or snow days, apropos.
Yep.
So I would be probably watching first a full episode of Sports Center, But then those morning sports centers, they would just repeat the same episode. So then I'd have to be putting something else on. But at 11 a.m., Price is Right would be coming on.
Same.
So then I'd be watching The Price is Right for sure. And then, you're hitting noon. And there was a period of time where after Price is Right, there was that 90s version of Match Game on, which I would watch. But that's not a good version of Match Game. It's like a
$10,000 pyramid, or is that what it is?
Well, it's the game show. It's like Match Game with like the one from the 70s or the one recently with Alec Baldwin, where it's like there's celebrities and it's like fill in the blank match with these celebrities. That 90s version had like Coolio and Judy Tenuta.
Rest in peace.
And Nell Carter and George Hamilton. These are the kind of celebrities that were on the 90s version of Match Game.
Yeah.
Which was, the 70s version of Match Game is like one of my favorite game shows. But the 90s version is kind of whatever. But if that would be on, and then it's like probably throwing on at that point whatever on Nickelodeon. Because by that point, Nick Jr. is over. And if I'm like, I guess I'm presupposing I'm a certain age where I'm older than the Nick Jr. audience. Now want to watch Brother Bear or Legger's Window or Gullah Gullah Island. So I've gotten past that. And then I can put Nickelodeon on where they're showing whatever is there before that kids are home from school block of television. So it could be any sort of like rerun. It might be a Nick Arcade. It might be whatever. But if it was a Nickelodeon show, I was probably down to watch it. And so I would just end up doing that. And if it wasn't something on Nickelodeon I liked, maybe I'd be flipping over to a Comedy Central. Maybe I'm seeing what music videos might be on an MTV or a VH1. I've been realizing recently, it's been coming up on my Substack, how much time I spent watching VH1 as a kid.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of like, for whatever reason, I ended up watching like a lot of that. But yeah, so it would probably be SportsCenter, Price is Right, maybe that version of Match Game, then probably whatever's on Nickelodeon. If there wasn't anything good on that, maybe checking to see what's airing on Comedy Central at that time. But I was not like expansive in my channel usage as a kid there. So like those are like channels that I definitely would be checking in on during the day if I was home ailing, or because I grew up in Michigan and sometimes it just snow too much to go to school, or be too cold or what have you. Although not all that often, because obviously Michigan was well prepared for that sort of thing. Yeah. And so like it'd have to be like bad weather for them not to be able to get kids to school. But that's sort of so that's sort of like the general how it would have gone.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you brought up the whole like Nick Jr. thing being over, because I definitely remember that. And I don't know why, I just remembered this, that there's like one day a week my mom was like randomly home early from work. She had to work a lot of hours. It's kind of crazy. But anyways, there's like one day in particular she was home kind of early. So I would ask her if she could please pop in a blank VHS tape and record Tintin, which aired on Nickelodeon at a weird time when I was at school. And I loved that show. I had the comic books, and I've seen the live action movie. I owned the DVDs of the cartoon, and I always remember being so bummed that Tintin was not on at a more appropriate time so that I could actually view it. But thank God she, got out early on Wednesdays for some odd reason. And so I was fortunate to watch some Tintin on VHS. Yeah. Yep. With the commercials in it, I'm sure. Unfortunately. Alrighty. Just so many great questions and good stuff here. You are picked as a new executive for a retro TV channel.
Ooh, my dream.
Yeah, I know, right? Seriously. That has a heavy emphasis on shows of the 90s, and you need to pick seven different shows for each day of the week. So just one show per day.
Like
Which,
Nickelodeon Block Party Summer.
yes. Oh my God.
All right.
I have not thought of that phrase until just now, since I remember seeing it. So one show per day. Which 7 shows would you pick? And they can be any genre or whatever you'd like.
Yeah, so all right. Gonna keep it kind of should they be operating in the same space, or maybe if I'm having probably should have some sort of variety. I'm gonna go with some variety.
Okay.
And the weekends will be like really gonna go like classic, well watched, well syndicated, people love them. And to stick with the like alliteration that made Block Party Summer, so successful, like a Munsters Mondays or what have you. But
Yeah.
Seinfeld will be Saturdays. Seinfeld will be on Saturdays. I'm starting with Saturday for some reason.
Well,
but
Seinfeld
will be-
Saturdays.
yeah,
That has a nice ring to it. It's
Seinfeld will
perfect.
be on Saturdays. I think that's a good day for Seinfeld.
Yep.
Sunday, maybe something a little chiller, but like still like a classic sitcom. Maybe something a little more family friendly, but still like a good sitcom from the 90s. Something better than Home Improvement, but in that space. Maybe I'll go a little TJF, actually. You know what? I'm going to go alliteration again. Step by Step Sundays.
Ooh.
Step by Step Sundays.
Yeah.
All right.
Nice.
Mondays, probably won't do any alliteration with Mondays. This is like, start of the work week. Okay, start of the work week. It's going to be like a job sort of based show then, like a workplace sitcom from the 90s. It's not like the super biggest sitcom, but I think it's starting to like pick up. I'm not going to do Murphy Brown for alliteration because I'm not that big of a Murphy Brown fan. I'm going to go news radio on Mondays. News radio on Mondays.
Yep.
All right. So I've been very sitcom-y here.
Yes.
So I'm going to give people some nice procedural television on a Tuesday here.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, in terms of having sheer tonnage, Tuesdays will be for Law and Order.
Ooh.
Tuesdays will be for Law and Order because you got so many options to go through and what have you that Tuesdays can be for Law and Order. So you got a nice day for like, cop drama, legal drama. You got that knocked out of the park. Wednesdays, maybe, let's see, because you just had a nice day of some like drama there. Wednesdays, I'm going to get a little, maybe go a little culty and also make it easier to sort of like stretch things out. Mystery Science Theater 3000 is going to be on Wednesdays. Just going to go through Mystery Science Theater 3000 episodes.
Yeah.
I just throw those on like, like a day. So like, yeah, because I mean, those episodes can take up like, a few hours of TV. So you don't have to go through that many episodes. And it's like the middle of the week. It's Wednesday. Just like throw something like, a little bit different out of the gate.
Sure.
Thursdays, I should probably have more than one day for like a drama of the week, but I don't want it to go like something that's like, I don't want heavy drama. So maybe something that's, can sort of do a mix of both. And in that sense, my first instinct would be Quantum Leap because because like it gives a little bit of that sci-fi sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a procedural, but it's not like it's a sort of different kind of thing, a different kind of flavor. It's and then Friday, well, I've already had one TJF show, so I don't need to do that. Maybe Friday then. Thinking about things like the thing is with like I'd be like, oh well, I should maybe do like a Nickelodeon show, but a lot of them don't have like super long runs, so you're just sort of like
Yeah.
flipping through them, you know, pretty like quickly. So it's like, you know, say, yeah, Pete and Pete's great. You've got like
Yes.
40 episodes. So if you're showing them like all day, you're basically through 2 weeks, you're like done and you're just going back over to the beginning. So unfortunately, I don't think I can go with any of the Nickelodeon shows or what have you. But Friday's, you know, probably the day going to be like maybe least watch of the week. You know what? In that sense, and just to try and get people watching, it's not my favorite sitcom, but I'll end where it began with alliteration. Friends Friday.
Nice. I was wondering if you were going to say that. Yes.
Yeah, they'll be there for you on Friday. You know, easy marketing, popular show, you know, and then like, yeah, it's like Friends Friday, Seinfeld Saturday, kind of like, you know, there on the weekend. So yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Nice.
If I was actually going to be doing this sort of thing, I would be thinking more about it and what have you, and maybe not, you know, going like Mission Says 2000 Wednesday, Quantum Leap Thursday, but that's what, you know, thinking about it, I think I would do.
Nice. Well, I think that, that's a great variety. Not the answers that I certainly would not have thought of. And I appreciate the thought that went into answering that question on the spot. And to go back to Home Improvement for a second, you know, given that you're in kind of like the greater Detroit area, correct? Is that?
Yeah, I'm right outside Detroit.
If you say, like, if you're out in public walking around and you say, I hate Home Improvement, do people like throw stuff at you or
I
slash your
don't
tires,
really...
or is that people defensive about that show in Michigan?
I don't really feel like, maybe in the back then it would have been, but like as much as, you know, like, you know, Tim Allen's from here and set that show here, he's not really a, you know, cultural figure with arms wrapped around him in the area, like, you know, like an Eminem or the actor J.K. Simmons is around here a lot, actually. He's born here, but he didn't live here for a long time. But like, he's a big Tigers fan. And he's like, if you can pretty much, you know, like clockwork, there'll be a handful of Tigers games a year where it's like, oh, who's in the booth with us this week? Why? It's J.K. Simmons. So like, and even like, you know, Kid Rock may be more polarizing, but you know, that's somebody you might be running a risk talking trash about.
Yeah.
But like, I don't feel like Tim Allen has really maintained Detroit and Michigander, you know, love, and that Home Improvement really has kept its cultural, maybe just because it does not, like, that sort of like fake suburb they set it in doesn't have any real, even like Michigan suburbs feel to it. It doesn't, and like, he wore some like shirts from local colleges and what have you. Sure, he wore a Northern Michigan University shirt at some point, but like, it just doesn't have like the same, he didn't really grab into like the cultural roots here in like the way some others have done. So he's not on some sort of like Mount Rushmore of like, you know, Detroit area celebrities at this point.
Which is, what a shame, you know, really. I mean, and I'm half joking and I'm half serious, you know, because I feel like the Midwest doesn't get a lot of love in so many, you know, areas of like entertainment and stuff. And so it's really, that's really sad, you know?
Yeah. It's really musicians and athletes here that are the ones more than like actors and what have you. But like our local musicians and our local athletes really get the love for sure in a way like actors largely don't. Other than Jeff Daniels. Jeff Daniels is also like pretty venerated. But I'll say he's like a huge Lions fan and Tigers fan. It's basically the athletes or the actors who love the sports teams around here.
That's true.
It's Detroit's a huge sports town, basically. So it boils down to.
Yeah, like Bill Murray and the Cubs.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right, so this is one of my kind of favorite, I guess, just topics in the world of 90s sitcoms and 80s sitcoms too. And we may have talked about some of this stuff a little bit the last time you were on, but so you mentioned in your book the sort of infamous obligatory television episode type when, for example, twins like Tia and Tamara have that sort of obligatory like switching places and or somebody kind of fulfilling what both of the sisters are supposed to be doing, if that makes sense. And so I feel like there's these sort of staples, I think, as you refer to them, that like always happen in 90s and 80s sitcoms. Um, and I was wondering if you had any other sort of observations you made of like what always happens in shows. So like one thing I can think of is like the temporary amnesia episode.
Yeah.
So like Michelle and Full House got like I think hit on the head with like a frying pan or something.
I believe she fell off a horse.
Oh, okay. There's
Yeah.
some show, or maybe I'm thinking of In Living Color. But so yeah, like the temporary amnesia thing, or like stuck in an elevator. Um,
Yeah.
do you remember like some sort of obligatory staple thing that happened in a lot of 90s sitcoms?
Let me think. For to mine staples and tropes, the best thing one can do is immediately start trying to think about Saved by the Bell plots,
Hmm.
because Saved by the Bell was not looking to reinvent the wheel. And if they could have, they probably would have just bought wheels from other shows and put
Yes.
those wheels on that car. They did, yeah, they did the thing with like, they're stuck in the elevator. They've, did every sort of like, version of like dating sort of stuff, or like uh
Yes.
the and everything possible, the fake IDs, and any show that involved people who are not old enough to drink, there'd be fake IDs for sure.
Yeah.
Starting up businesses, lots of people were starting up businesses that really had no business doing so on
Yeah.
sitcoms in the 80s and 90s. It feels like somebody beat maybe just a secondary or tertiary character. They just, and it may just be for like one episode, it might run for a little while. It's definitely a lot of like changing of occupations and starting up businesses and building up companies and stuff along those lines.
Hmm.
But like definitely something that is noticeable and is a trope of sitcoms and like movies, and just like one of the like most sort of like you just have to accept the reality sort of thing. It's like how many times that conflict is generated through the not deciding to, or not making the decision to just have a very simple conversation to pave over confusion or a misunderstanding. So
Hmm.
many misunderstandings are left to fester by either somebody not explaining it or somebody not sticking around for the explanation. How many times has somebody been like, wait, let me explain, on an old sitcom or whatever, where and like I've
Yeah.
been like real life be like, okay, explain. And then like they explain it, it's like, okay, fair enough, that's settled. But like people have to, is particularly in lesser sort of like, but even like good sitcoms like Seinfeld would
Yeah.
have the sort of like misunderstanding based plot of where an explanation would have completely like just like one quick 20-second conversation would have eliminated all of the confusion and chaos and like what have you going on with those characters.
Yeah.
And it's just like that's just sort of like less big picture story types and much more just like when you're watching old sitcoms, how many there's the one element of like, oh, how many of these plots would not happen in modern times with the internet and cell phones? That's one thing. That's just technology.
That's true.
Like,
Yes. Very
that's just
true.
like life. That's how things have been since the beginning. It's like, obviously that makes sense because in that time it makes sense. But when you're like watching like an old sitcom or what have you, just like, keep in mind, like keep track of like every single time. Like, it's like, oh, this complication, this plot could have easily been settled if there was one quick 5-second conversation here, and then none of this would have happened. And sane
Right.
people
Right.
who act like human beings, would just have 2 seconds of conversation there. Like, very rarely in real life does somebody storm out or like leave aghast after like, seeing something while somebody's saying, I can't explain or what have you. Just like, nope, don't want to hear any explanations. I know what's
Doors
going
slam.
on and I must leave, because if I don't leave, then the rest of this plot doesn't happen. So,
Right.
that's just like a real, like number one, probably like low key, like trope of like old sitcoms
Yeah.
that is, oftentimes a reflection of, like if you're writing.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. I think the one sort of consistent one that happened a lot, especially 90s heavy, I think, and that I just can't stand is that drove me nuts was always the like chaotic, loud pregnancy giving birth episode is like
Yeah.
always obnoxious, and there's too
Yeah.
many people in the room, and the woman giving birth next to whoever is screaming.
Yeah.
And they're pushing the mom to be really fast in a wheelchair, and she almost like
Yeah.
falls out of it. It's like uh, it is not like that. Not that
Yeah.
my children are both adopted, but from what I understand,
Yeah.
it's not like that. And it's just the obnoxious birth episode I can't stand.
A
And
lot
then,
of a lot of women giving birth in places other than hospitals because they're just
that too.
suddenly
Yes.
going into super fast labor. I mean, I was
Mhm.
watching a Frasier episode recently, and it's like a funny episode and everything like that. It's the one where, but like it begins with Frasier and Niles and Martin are in a cab, and the cab driver goes into labor, and so they have to like help her, like
Yes.
with the baby or what have you. And then it becomes like a funny thing where Niles carries around a bag of flour to see if he's ready to be a dad or what have you. It's a funny
So
episode.
true.
Frasier's a funny show, but
Yeah.
it's like all the tropes are right there.
Yep.
Like the hand squeezing, the woman squeezing the hand too tight, the yelling, the screaming, and all that
Yes.
sort of stuff, and the chaos. Yeah, it's like sitcoms loved for women to be completely unprepared to go into labor. It's like it's very rarely on sitcoms does a woman have a commonplace sort of like labor where she's at the hospital hours before she gives the baby.
Right.
It's always like panic, panic, panic.
Yes.
Nobody's
Emergency.
prepared.
Yes. And then always typically too, the sort of woman who's giving birth is really angry at the man who is the father of the baby and like screaming at him like, you did this to me, or
That's
it's
exact
just
word
obnoxious.
phrase that came in my brain. So many, you did this to me.
Yeah. It's like, well, takes two to tango, lady. Anyways, so that always drove me nuts. And then I think one other commonality I've seen a lot with shows aimed at kind of high school or maybe middle school age, which is kind of weird, but is the characters are in school and there's some project where they have to get married for the health class or something, and then they end up being married to the dork at school, or the the nerd at school, or the guy they don't like, or they're married to the guy that they thought they liked, but it turns out he's a jerk. It's like there's just like plot lines that they just pull from like a bowl. Like, what should we do this week?
Yeah.
Or the recap episode or they like highlight stuff from different seasons because they don't feel like making episode from scratch. That always used to drive me nuts too. It's like, I don't need to see a clip. Clip episode.
I believe a lot of the time that was about saving money for the studios.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also because back then people weren't seeing every episode like they are now. So
True.
it's like I feel like I believe the old line was that back in the day somebody was considered a regular viewer of a show by like networks and like ratings boards if you saw 1 out of every 3 episodes.
Yeah.
So in that world, clip shows made a little more sense, but it still is like strange to be like, okay, yeah, I guess we're just recapping things and showing clips and what have you. It was like there's logistical reasons for it that like are that make sense for the era, but it is like not the most definitely like nobody who's rewatching shows is like rewatching like the recap or like clip show episodes.
Right. Yeah. Which is your favorite episode of the Golden Girls? Oh, the one where they just like go back over old episodes. Okay. Some other questions I want to try to make sure we get to here. So let's see. You discussed the brilliance of the PBS kids game show in your book about the 90s shows. The brilliance of Carmen Sandiego. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Well, she sneaks around the world from India to Carolina. She's a sticky-fingered filcher from Berlin down to Belize. Take you for a ride on a slow boat to China. Tell me, where in the world is
Carmen Sandiego?
Steal their soul in South Korea, making honey cook right on the from the Red Sea to Greenland. Czechoslovakia and back. Well, she'll ransack Pakistan and run a scan in Scandinavia. Then she'll stick 'em up down under and go pickpocket birth. She was the missing misdemeanor.
Fantastic game show. Love that so much. So that was really like top tier, top shelf in terms of kids' game shows. But out of this list, which other children's game show do you think was a close second to Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? So pick one out of this list that you think is like top shelf, top tier kids' game show.
Right.
Legends of the Hidden Temple, Guts, Nick Arcade, and Double Dare. That's a tough list.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of ones like I enjoyed like the most, in terms of like quality, how it was done, it would probably be Double Dare. And Double Dare's also so influential. My favorite, the most entertaining, the one I enjoyed the most was Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Yes,
So it's like,
same.
but it could be a little sweaty in its execution in a way that Double Dare was less so. If I was like ranking them in quality, I'd be Nick Arcade 4, Guts 3, Legend of the Hidden Temple 2, Double Dare 1 in terms of like execution and quality of show plus enjoyment all mixed in. Most enjoyable because I mean, Legend of the Hidden Temple has like the fun aesthetic elements of it.
Yes.
When like production design, great. Double Dare though, second to really when you think about the obstacle course element of it,
Yeah.
you know, second to none on that sense as well. And Mark Summers probably a little bit of a better host. So yeah, Double Dare number one, and also bonus points for, you know, presaging all those other shows.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like, and I don't watch a lot of TV now. As an adult, I watch kind of whatever on YouTube, but I feel like there was something just very special about, well, children's programming in general, but especially the game show stuff is just so creative. Like who didn't want to go, you know, do Double Dare or go on Legends of the Hidden Temple? I mean, I would have, you know, wanted to do that in a heartbeat, or, you know, even Guts I thought was, you know, at the time was really cool. And
I would love to be on Guts as a kid because I like sports and stuff. So
yeah. And something recently, just a quick aside, is my wife was on as part of a book club, and they had this like get together over a weekend somewhat recently, and there was a T-shirt exchange thing that happened. So you know, brought in like a kind of weird T-shirt, and she ended up with a Legends of the Hidden Temple shirt. I think it's a green shirt with a monkey on it. And
green monkeys, I have an orange iguana shirt. And I have a trivia team that plays on my trivia nights. They play as the Blue Barracudas. So Legend of the Hidden Temple lives for sure.
It does. Yeah, she sent me a picture. She's like, "Do you know what this is?" I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
I don't need any hints. I know exactly what that is, and I will be wearing it. So now it's on my shelf and like the part of the closet because she just knows that. And that's, you know. All right. Okay. Here are a couple of Muppet Baby questions.
There we go. Yeah, as promised.
These are some of my favorites to come up with, and are just totally ridiculous.
When you rule, what's kind of weird, and you wish that you weren't there.
Just close your eyes and make believe, and you can be anywhere.
I like adventure.
I like romance.
I love great jokes.
I'm a mobile.
I've got my computer.
I can do that.
I'll play the piano.
Is everything all right in here?
Yes, Nanny.
I know that you were a big fan of Muppet Babies growing up. I was too. Oh my God, I love that show so much. And so in many of the episodes, there are scenes where the Muppets are, you know, sleeping or socializing in their cribs. There's like several Muppets to a crib. I think there's 8 of them altogether. So I guess it's probably like 4 and 4 maybe. So if you had to If you had to pick 3 Muppet babies to be your like crib mates, like the dumbest question I've ever asked anybody in my entire life, which 3 Muppets would you want to be crib mates with, and why?
Well, I guess maybe I have to cast myself in the mind of somebody who would be in a crib,
Right. That's what you're
being
like.
of that
Yeah.
age,
Think of like
because
toddler self.
yeah, as a youngster, maybe like back when I was like watching. Well, even when I was watching the show, I was older than them, so I'd even have to cast my mind back. It's kind of like how I say in my Nickelodeon book that Rugrats is basically a show for 8-year-olds who are nostalgic about being 4, which is a strange thing.
Yes.
But like
again,
so like
another brilliant observation. It's like, yes, that is. I mean, never thought of it that way, but you said that, and that is totally spot on. Yeah.
But in terms of like just like which ones I guess were the most entertaining. Oh, yeah, it's right. I believe there was 8, and then when Bean Bunny was added, there'd be 9 then.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. But obviously, I'm not choosing Bean because Bean was the worst character. You don't want to be sharing with Miss Piggy, too greedy, too selfish.
I know she's such a bad attitude.
Yeah. Gonzo, too weird. Animal, too crazy. So knocking those 3 out and knocking Bean out. So I'm down to 5. Skeeter, Ralph, Fozzie, and Kermit. Obviously, Kermit's mad chill, so Kermit being there. Fozzie's trying to bring some fun into the mix, so I throw Fozzie in there as well. And then, as to not create separation anxiety between the twins, I'll go with Rolf, and so Rolf will finish it out. It'll be me, it'll be Rolf, it'll be Fozzie, it'll be Kermit. And then you can, the rest of them can, kick rocks in the other crib, I guess.
I love the separation anxiety comment. That's so thoughtful of you.
Yeah.
That's so courteous.
I don't want to make Scooter and Skeeter separate.
Yeah, I know. That would be terrible. That'd be a crime. I think that is a great answer. All right, let's see. Another Muppet Babies one. Muppet Babies was also remembered for the infamous character of Nanny, who we never see the face of. We just see her green striped socks and like the top of her like long sweater, I guess.
Is everything all right in here?
Yes, Nanny.
In your head, how do you kind of picture Nanny? What do you think she was like? What do you think she looked like? And then to add to that, again, probably this is like the second dumbest question I've ever asked anybody. If Muppet Babies was ever turned into a live action film, who do you think should play Nanny?
Yeah, well, this would also, by answering that, I can sort of like say how I would depict her in my head, trying to think of like, with that voice, I think she's probably maybe low key a little older than I would have internalized then, because when I was that age, anybody over the age of 30 might as well have been 60.
Yes.
So she's probably, middle-aged, friendly.
Yeah.
You know what? Who I could see playing Nanny live action is Jenna Fisher. I think Jenna Fisher famously from The Office, Pam Beasley. I think Pam Beasley has some, Nanny adjacent energy.
Yeah.
I think Jenna Fisher would play Nanny in this live action, or probably like kind of like one of those like the Mufasa or Lion King movies where it's like you got sort of like this photorealistic animation mixed with the live action. So I guess more like the Jungle Book adaptation. And then and then you got probably live action Statler and Waldorf or what have you as well. But yeah, I'm casting Jenna Fisher as Nanny in such a film.
That is a fantastic answer, and I would have never thought that, but that would be great. Yeah, she's very maternal. She has kind of maternal vibes, very innocently nice, and seems like outside of her, persona on television or whatever, she seems like a pretty kind person who's a cancer survivor, too. So pretty incredible. But that is a fantastic answer. All right, we have a couple more. Do a few more here. Let's see. This is like a trivia question.
Oh, okay.
Feel free to use this, on one of your trivia nights. let's see. Do you remember what the Muppet Babies referred to their like TV gaming system as?
Ooh, I 100% do not. That's a good question. I got no clue. So
Okay, I don't know why I
is it
thought of that.
Pretendo?
Yes,
There
nice.
we go.
That
Just
is
popped in my
obscure.
head.
That
There
is
we go. There we go.
that is
Man, that
that
just
is
popped in my head.
wait. That was very impressive. That if that doesn't tell. So for the people listening to the show, if that doesn't tell you the commitment that Chris has to, 90s and like late 80s TV shows, I don't know what else will. That is a very obscure, probably said on one episode one time.
Yep.
That is impressive. So it's good that you write about this kind of stuff because you know what you're talking about. All right. Which show? We'll step back from Muppet Babies here. Which show that you watched, as a part of your research for your book, made you kind of cringe the most?
Ooh. I mean, there's a sweatiness to Cop Rock, certainly.
Yeah.
And as somebody especially who is not really a fan of that integrated style of musical where people are breaking into song
Yes.
and the way they do it you know, unsuccessfully. And it's not like the worst that episode I chose, not the worst example of that. I don't unless is that the episode where I'm trying to remember if this is in that episode or if I was just watching clips and I saw this. There's an episode where there's a white cop, I believe, singing to a black cop in a bar about like racial elements of like police work. And that is one of the cringe-worthiest pieces of television like ever.
Yeah.
And like when I'm not like particularly like a fan of that style as is, unless it's in like a kitschy sort of like archway.
Yeah.
And just like and that is just like so yeah, Pop Rock has the most moments of just like this is so anathema to like human endeavor
Yeah.
that it is difficult to allow it into oneself and thus the cringing.
Right. Yeah. It's like kind of unrelatable and it's such a touchy subject that shouldn't be handled that way. And yeah, just when you even just hearing you starting to describe it, I was like, oh, this is not, I don't like where this is going. Not you, but I mean like the setup of that story. Yikes. All right, let's see. And out of all the shows, that you researched, which do you think has held up the best over the years and which do you think has held up the worst?
In terms of like ones that like were research, for that in that sense, I'll just like eschew the ones that I watch all the time, just because like once I like went back to, I'm like, oh, you know what, this actually holds up fairly well. Well, it's a very nice show, but like I probably mentioned last time, and I'll mention it, just again because it comes to my mind is like unexpectedly good is the Clueless adaptation that they did. I mean, it's quite 90s, but like it unexpectedly holds up, and that it's actually sort of like funny, and it's not just like I mean, like if I was like power ranking shows from that book, it's not like in the top 10 or anything, but unexpectedly good. Still like funny, doesn't feel like trapped in the 90s, doesn't feel like super gimmicky. So like surprisingly good, surprisingly holds up. Doesn't hold up is that I think like Murphy Brown, because you want to talk about shows that like feel trapped in the 90s. Like Murphy Brown is like trapped in the 90s in a way that it feels like that show is not conceiving of a future where it was still being watched. It's like episodes feel like they were written for, like, it feels strangely disposable. Like it's late night television or Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Like they were thinking like this will be watched like once in the immediate aftermath, and then it'll just be like disposed and we move on to the next thing. And that leads to it not really holding up. It's very like reference heavy, like in of the moment reference heavy in like a way that's just not effective like for long-termedness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's what's been noted about Friends, for example, why that show has continued to be so popular is because they really didn't focus on like current events or
Yeah.
referencing politicians or
Yeah.
musicians or anything. It makes it a little bit more timeless, and sure, the clothes are dated and
Yeah.
whatever, but it still is, watchable. But yeah, if you don't know the references they're making, it can, not be very interesting. And I think that's why I do like some early like 70s Saturday Night Live. I love Gilda Radner, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But a lot of early SNL is kind of hard for me to watch because I just don't know who they're referring to, so I don't find
Yeah.
it very funny. So I think that's a great observation about Murphy Brown. If you make it too locked in time, the rewatchability factor is tough because it's like no longer funny, no longer relevant. So that's a good observation. All right, we'll do two more.
All right.
Trying to think which one I want to end on. Tough one. Okay, second to last question.
Right.
You mentioned in try not to feel like I'm a lot of spoilers here, but so I won't get into the specifics. But if you were to cross paths with Barney at the height of his popularity, which was sort of the height of your, not being able to stand him or the show, and this isn't going to be recorded. This isn't, there'll be no documentation of this. If you ran into him or the people that put together the show, I guess you could say, what do you think he would say?
So I'm like that age, and I'm running to the people, and it's like, oh yeah, we created Barney or whatever. I'd be like, I mean, like, I being like a child, I probably wouldn't have like, said anything like, but if I was being like asked like, hey, like, so what are your thoughts about the show? Like almost like they're doing like market research or whatever, I'd be like, it's like, it's bad and it's, it's dumb and it's not like funny and it's like annoying and your songs are annoying. And I really like find the show like annoying. And like obviously like it would be very like simplistic reflections of what it was because I would not, have the articulation of what was not like good about it. I'd probably just be like, I don't like it. I'd probably, being a child, be like, I hate it and it annoys me. But it's like, no, I'd just be like, it's, low quality, repetitive, generic children's programming in a way that's, not remarkable. But it's, at the time, it's like, I hate your show. It's bad because that is what I thought at the time. Because it was like the big show for people younger than me. And then my first sort of like show where that was like the case of like, here's a cultural phenomenon I'm too old for. And I'm seeing it for what, all the negatives in it, which I still see now. I just have a different perception of it.
Yeah. Yep. I know it's definitely one of those shows that, the songs drive you nuts. And I think another sort of staple of 90s TV too is just bad child actors.
Yeah.
And that show is notorious for it. This is no Fred Savage, no Melissa Joan Hart. Those when they were kids, they were like phenomenal, very convincing, very natural in front of a camera. But I feel like they found all of the deer in the headlights, bad actor kids that they could and rounded them up and that couldn't dance and painful to watch. All right, so the last question, just really random. Which fictional restaurant do you think would have served better food? The Max from Saved by the Bell or Rachel's Place from Family Matters?
The Max is such a like generic-y burger place.
Yes.
And the Max also does not put ice in its drinks.
Oh.
Which is a thing that's done on the show. I mean, they did on the show because that way there wasn't ice clinking when they're picking up their glasses to drink their drinks or what have you.
Yeah.
But, me seeing it, like watching it's like, oh, you just serve like soda that's got no ice in it. And it's very, it was like a clean looking place. It's probably like, I mean, it's basically like a Johnny Rockets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Rachel's Place has a more, you know, personality to it, more, you know, of a driving force behind it. You
Yeah.
may run into Urkel, unfortunately, but
Right.
other than that, I mean, if you're at the Max, you know Screech is going to be there at some point, and that's no better.
That's true.
And like Zach might be there doing some crazy stunt. You know,
Right.
they're there with their narcissism. That group there with their narcissism, as if though there's nobody else there.
Right.
And it's like, it feels like it'd be like not a good eating experience if you were there while they were there.
So
And
true.
so
Like you wouldn't be welcome at that table. Like get away
it's
from
got to be Rachel's Place then. It's like, it kind of, I mean, like the Max reminds me of like a humor piece I wrote back in the day from the perspective of somebody just being like another student at the college when the food fight went down in Animal House. Of it just being like, I was just like doing my thing, and these two crazy frats started this, like, you know, it's just like, because like the movie's based around these characters, so like they're the only ones that really exist or they cared about. It's like the same thing with Saved by the Bell. It's like, imagine just being some other like kid at Bayside or like from another school, and you go to the Max, and then whatever chaos Zach and the gang are up to is happening. It's like, it's ruining like your experience. It's like a miserable place to be. I would never, like, that happens once, I'm like, that's weird. It happens twice, I'm never going back there, because it's like the worst vibe imaginable, because there's these handful of like teenagers with like no boundaries and barely any ethics, and you know, completely running roughshod over the place. I don't want any part of that. So Rachel's Place over the Max any day of the week.
Yeah, and Lord knows what they would have picked on the jukebox to play if it was a bad song or something that could ruin the whole dining experience. Yeah, I know. It's like if I wanted to be entertained at a restaurant, I would have gone to Medieval Times, not the Max. I feel like Rachel's Place kind of gives me sort of like maybe like early or like 80s TGI Fridays vibes, Bennigan's kind of, yeah. I wonder if they served Urkelos in the morning for breakfast. Okay, well that is a very wise explanation about choosing Rachel's Place over the Max, and I concur. It's like being like the new kid out of school, you know, that scene that's in every movie where they're like have the tray and walk into the cafeteria and they're like, where are they going to sit? And they know they want to sit with that group of jerks over at you know, at that one table smashed into the booth. No thanks. Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you so much for answering those very, I don't know, obscure, bizarre questions created by yours truly. It was just really fun to kind of pick your brain and get your perspective. And I really appreciated, I mean, and again, put you on the spot with all these questions.
Oh, yeah. No, I really enjoyed doing it. Those are good questions. It was interesting. Like, you know, if you want to take this format and use it with another guest, I think by all means do it. You've done this dry run on it now. Yeah, no, it's an interesting way to sort of like have a conversation and to like do like an interview that's not just an interview. It was really good questions, really interesting, really fun. And yeah, I was glad to do it. And you really brought some interesting questions to the table for sure.
Yes, I would like to just give myself a pat on the back for my Muppet Babies questions, especially because that's really the epitome of you know, my role as a podcast host. So to wrap up though, where can people find you? You know, where can they find your books? All that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, my books are found basically anywhere, you know, books are sold on the old internets, be it Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the publishers, McFarland. You can get directly from the publisher if you want. You know, they're available through books sellers in Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, so on and so forth. It might be at a library near you. My most recent book, 99 Episodes to Define the 90s, but I got a couple other books. If you read 99 Episodes to Define the 90s, you know, if you want to leave a review wherever you leave reviews, be it Amazon, be it Goodreads, what have you, that's what I appreciate. My previous appearance here, it was the pre-buy my book, pre-order my book. Now, at this point in the process, it's the leave reviews, read ratings. That's like, that's what I need now. Because that's what gets people, interested in buying the book when they see like some people like it or what have you. And invariably some people who have very petty, minute qualms of the book will give it 1 star, and it'll be very frustrating. So having people who like it, giving it, you don't have to give it 5 stars. If you don't think it's a 5-star book, don't give it 5 stars. Give it 4 stars or what have you. That's fine with me. I'm not just saying like, just give it 5 stars because I say so. I'm saying like, if you like it, please do leave a review, whatever that may be. My other sort of writing sort of stuff, I mean, I technically have a Twitter, but I never post anything on there really anymore about what I'm doing or what have you. I do a lot of writing for the website Yardbarker. I'm trying to do more entertainment stuff there. So if you like sports or like entertainment, go to Yardbarker and just like, check stuff out there. If you search my name there, you'll probably find my work. I have like a author's page on there. I don't my Substack is chrisxmorgan.substack.com. It's called My Substack Could Be Your Life. Shout out to the Minutemen. I don't post on there as much as I would like because I'm doing a lot of other work stuff. And if I get more subscribers there, then I will write on there more. That's how that business works. Of course, I also need to write stuff there to make people justify it. But I'm just letting people know if they're listening to this, if you subscribe, the more subscribers I get, the more I'll be able to justify writing for it. If you want to try and find me on social media to like chit chat or ask me a question or to like, what have you, you could technically go to Twitter at chrisxmorgan, because I do look on there occasionally. But the one I use the most is my Instagram that I admittedly use mostly for hosting trivia. But even though it's for that, I post a lot of other nonsense on there, which they don't necessarily love at the trivia company I work for. But they have more patience for that than some other stuff I've done. That's a whole other story. But that is at Chris Morgan Sporkle. And I do post stuff on there. That's like my nonsense. If you want to know my Oscar predictions for the upcoming Oscars, or probably maybe listen to this, the Oscars that just happened, I threw that up there randomly. And that's the way, if you want to like contact me or what have you, that's the social media I look at the most. So that's all of my stuff and what have you. Number one thing would be, if you read 99 episodes, etc. for the rest of that title, please, if you like it, do leave a review somewhere, anywhere. I'm leaving that choice up to you. You don't have to do it on Amazon if you don't like Amazon, but I would appreciate any reviews from people who like the book.
Sure.
That's my plugs.
Okay. And I'll make sure to link everything in the show notes to your social media and your Substack and stuff. I'll make sure to include all of that. So, Chris, thank you so much for being on the show. And the virtual door is always open to you to come back. And thank you so much for being willing to answer my ridiculous questions about 90s TV shows.
Yeah, I'll be happy to come back sometime. We don't have to wait a year this time.
Yeah, really. Yeah, for real. I hope you enjoyed this look back at 90s TV shows with pop culture author Chris Morgan. And I hope that you will join me for my next episode, where we will be taking yet another look at a fascinating facet of the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s in memory of my sister. Until then, be kind, be safe, and hold on to your memories.
Thank you for tuning into my mama's podcast and the memories of Auntie Rebecca.
Just close your eyes and make believe, and you can be anywhere.
I like adventure.
I like romance.
I love great jokes. I'm a mobile.
I've got my computer.
I can do that.
I'll play the piano. Is everything all right in here?
Yes, Nanny.